And we are rolling. Welcome back, guys, to the ARTFUL Podcast, episode number 2. I had a busy week. I was planning this episode and I was painting and drawing. I'm planning a commission that just come through a couple of days ago. And yeah, never stopping. And yeah, busy week. No complaining. A bit tired. Having problem on sleeping. Lately, I'm not sleeping real well. I don't know why. I'm thinking too much probably. Anyway, today we are gonna talk about one of my favorite artists. Top 3 for sure. His life is a bit of a mystery, and we have generic information about him, and that's why I think it's really interesting as a character. The artist that I'm going to talk about today is a Baroque painters. Baroque painters worked to set themselves apart from painters of the Renaissance period. In their palette they use intense and warm colors, and particularly made use of the primary colors, red, blue and yellow, frequently putting all three in close proximity. They avoided the even lighting of the Renaissance painting, and they used strong contrast of light and darkness on certain part of the picture to direct attention to the central action of figure. In their composition they avoid the tranquil scene of Renaissance painting and choose the momentum of the greatest movement and drama. Unlike the tranquil faces of Renaissance painting, the faces of Baroque painters' paintings clearly express their emotions. Another essential element of Baroque paintings was allegory. Every painting told a story and had a message, often encrypted in symbols and allegorical characters, which I think is one of the most interesting part of this period. Is really fascinating and really interesting the way they choose to represent those scenes. This is gonna be short and sweet, and anyway, let's dive in. The artist that I'm going to talk about today is Caravaggio. He was born in Milan in 1571, and his real name was Michelangelo Merisi. He got his name Caravaggio from the little town that he grew up in, just outside Milan. His father died when he was only 6 years old, and this influenced his behavior for sure when he grew up, as he didn't have a solid father figure. And he left the little town and moved to Milan at only 13 years old. Clearly the mother didn't like him. Poor guy. Anyway, he went to Milan to start doing art, and we don't have any information till 1592 when he was 20 years old. Remember, no social media. Did he ever go to brunch and overpay 2 eggs and an avocado toast? We will never know. Even in Rome, we have little information, but we know that he carried on doing art and he was taking any sort of jobs. He was struggling as a freelance artist because at the time all the commission from churches and noblesse were going through the old master workshop, and he would give you work to do and pay you. Basically, you were recommended, you will have jobs I guess nothing really changed from 1500. Obviously, before he became a big figure in art, Caravaggio was poor and he painted still life because it would be cheap to have as a subject, like for example fruit basket, and most of the time he would paint even when he was rotten, which doesn't sound so crazy now, but at the time it was revolutionary. Let's remember that it was 1600 and everything in a painting had to be beautiful and perfect. But that's why I love this artist so much. He was capturing the realness of he was painting and not the imaginary world that everybody wanted to see. And most of the time he wouldn't have any money for paying a model, so he would do self-portrait to be able to practice, which I can relate really, as I do the same. Plus I love myself so much, so I don't really mind paint my beautiful face. He became really famous after his first public commission, which I believe was in a church in Rome, and he went viral. Painters from all over the world wanted to visit Rome and go see Caravaggio's painting. His way of painting the picture in a novelistic way was one of the first artists on approaching the painting like this, focusing more in the theatrical look with strong contrast between lights and shadows, using a technique called chiaroscuro, which became really popular, such that create a movement after his name, Caravaggesque. So basically he became an influencer. Caravaggio was getting into trouble all the time, and actually we were able to recreate his life through police reports. In 1603 was involved into a beef with another artist. I guess dissing was a thing at the time as well, and his behavior escalated in 1606, where he killed somebody with his sword. Oh yes, he was walking around Rome with his sword. He decided to run away, first in Naples and then Malta, where he had a great relationship with the place. He even got nominated St. John Knights, which was the highest nomination in Malta at the time. But he gets in troubles again and he runs to Sicily. Caravaggio was a unique artist in a sense that he was really real in his painting. I think he wanted to represent the violent world that was Italy in 1600, and he's brought that violent world in represented sacred scene with the brutality of reality, and those religion scenes turn up really dark and not worshipful like they were used to do it at the time. And he became a game changer. I mean, he completely changed the way of looking at a painting. This Baroque artist made some really complex composition with super realistic fruit basket and complicated expressions from the subject. For example, the calling of St. Matthew, where he became one of the apostles of Christ, and Caravaggio decided to represent just before the moment of transition that is his spiritual awakening. And it's really interesting that he chose to represent that specific moment as a Baroque artist. You can see Christ on the right, which you can barely understand is Christ, that emits only the barest hint of the spiritual in the hairline halo above his head. And it's really important to see and notice where he's placed. He's the man, right? He's Christ, and he's not in the center of the painting, which is supposed to be as the main figure. You can only see the head and the hand which he is using to point Matthew, and even Peter is covering up his body. Even Matthew is covered by his tax collector colleagues, but Caravaggio used the light to elevate this character. They are dressed with contemporary clothing of the time, which is strange, supposed to be happening ages ago, and there is very little about this that looks a spiritual moment. Other artists will create a sense of divine by making figure ideally beautiful, but Caravaggio's figure are earthbound, common people, and it's set in a tavern or a bar and not in those perfect landscape. And there is so much we can talk about this painting, but the point is that he was a great revolutionary artist. I personally learned so much from this artist, and still looking at his work to get me inspired. He was basically a super talent, crazy influencer. That's it for today, guys. We are gonna talk about more artists and art next episodes. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video. Thank you for listening. From the ARTFUL Podcast and Matteo, I'm out.